I don't want AI to do my writing and my art so that I have more time to go and do the laundry and the dishes. It's the wrong way round.
But what kind of backgrounds do your technical people come from then?
We want our tech to be invisible. If anyone is thinking about our technology when they're using Bonza, we've sort of missed it. The best tech should be invisible. It should be like magic.
What made you want to lean in and have a company that really focuses on the collaborative element of that music creation?
I think the biggest mistake is not listening to other people when they've got a decent opinion. Don't necessarily assume they're perfect, but keep your ears open, keep an open mind.
Why have you tried to make it so sort of accessible to anyone? Because it's not just professional musicians who need this, it could be anyone.
Yes, of course, we've got a mission. Yes, of course, we want to make money. But also we need to look after people along the way. Without a brilliant team, we are nowhere.
Hello, and welcome to Tech Effect, the podcast where we interview industry leaders and experts on the topics and trends shaping the tech industry. My name is Josh from TestDevLab's marketing team, and today I'm joined by Fiona Ryder.
Hello.
Hello. Fiona is a co-founder and chief operations officer at Bonza Music, a B2B and B2C enterprise-ready immersive collaboration platform in the music tech industry for professionals and educators alike. Fiona has a long career in the tech side of the entertainment industry, and her current work sees her building Bonza Music's studio quality platform where musicians can rehearse, teach, and play together in real time with the feel of a shared room. So, welcome again. Hello.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm loving Riga.
I'm glad you like it, even though it's really cold. So something I like to do with all our podcast guests is to help our audience understand more about you and your journey, is to take it back to the start. And you're currently the co-founder and COO of Bonza Music, but this isn't your first time in the music industry. In the past, you've led and worked with companies both in the music and television industries, but always in multimedia.
Absolutely.
So how did that happen? What drew you to be in that auto entertainment industry, specifically working on the tech behind it?
I think it's a really interesting question. I have to say, of all the questions I knew you were going to ask me, that was one of the ones that gave me pause for thought. So I think this goes back to my childhood. It has to. My brother, who I adored and sadly died a couple of years ago, he was much older than me, and he was already at art school when I was only 4 or 5. And I used to sit in his studio at home and listen to his music and draw terrible pictures while he was doing amazing works of art. And I think I grew up on a diet of Bowie and Kraftwerk and Queen and Pink Floyd, at the age of 5. So I think I was immersed into just really brilliant music from an early age. And then my mother was trained as an actress but became an English teacher, and my father was a physics lecturer. So you can sort of start to see that brilliant melting pot of both artistic and creative and technical really being part of my formative years. And so I think it was just sort of a natural progression. I ended up going to film school before it was really a very common thing to do. And I met the man that went on to become my husband, who worked in the music industry. And really, I think everything sort of enmeshed. And that was it. And I've always been fascinated by the moving image and also audio and how we can leverage the brilliant tools that are out there now to do some exceptional things.
Oh, that's good. And now you're building Bonza, this company you've co-founded. What made you want to lean in and have a company that really focuses on the collaborative element of that music creation?
I think this, again, is a great question. And when I was sort of coming to the end of a period of looking after a TV station and producing a few documentaries, going back more to my roots with sort of wider multimedia, I was involved with building and scaling an e-learning platform, teaching actually business. And I started looking back to my roots in the music industry and looking at kind of, I suppose, what was happening in music education. And in the UK, music education has been fairly badly decimated by successive governments. And it's harder than ever if you want to make a career in music. So it starts there with not everyone has access to music education. And then if you are an up-and-coming musician, we realised that all of the money you earn from gigs goes back into your rehearsal room for the next gig. And then you have to support yourself with jobs as, barista or working in a bar to give yourself time to build your music career. And the thought was, well, how could we make a tool that might enable musicians to be able to keep more of their money and learn more quickly. And that was the genesis of it. And so I actually attended a 5G event, which was a showcase put together by a brilliant man called Simon Saunders. And Jamie Cullum, who's been one of our biggest supporters, was appearing there. And he, in fact, had been booked by one of our other co-founders. And they had a sort of, if you like, a live remote performance with an awful lot of tech. And that was, I think, the pivot point where we went, okay, there's something really interesting here that we could look at in terms of creating a tool that would enable musicians to collaborate more easily. But that 5G event only looked at some of the low latency technology that was needed to facilitate this tech. And what I was fascinated by is how can we make it sound and appear genuine, so you have an emotive connection. Making music is an artistic endeavor. You have to feel connected to the other people. It's live artistic creation, if you like. You might know what you're going to do, but there's always the possibility you might go off piece slightly and do something random. But in order for you to feel comfortable and be able to do that, you've got to not only trust the people you're playing with, but be able to do it in a meaningful way with the tech.
And it also gives them, I guess, a bit of extra flexibility. You're not thinking, how are we all going to get there? Are we have a good booking slot? You can just do it
Absolutely.
anywhere.
So the idea of creating technology that reduced cost, reduced travel time, enabled more people to stay at home. And let's be honest, everybody now uses tools like Zoom and Teams and Google Meet and all of them that are there. But they were all created for conferences and meetings. And they're great for that. But they don't do both the ultra low latency or give people a sense of presence and being there. And by us combining ultra low latency technology, both audio and video, with immersive spatial audio in a way that enables you to sense the placement and proximity of other players around you, and to be able to change the venue acoustics of the room in which you're playing at the touch of a button, has been, I think, a massive step up, and people are really excited about the technology we've built.
So you're building this really great tech. You've always had a bit of an interest from your childhood onwards, but in building sort of Bonza Music, have there been any lessons that you've seen from your past experiences that have helped you in doing this? Because you're working on the tech, you've seen this, you're doing it. Is there anything you're like, actually, that's really going to help me build this?
I think, yeah, lessons from previous efforts of building and scaling and sometimes exiting businesses profitably. I think every single business I've built has been a learning experience in one shape or form or another. And I think when you first start out, I had my first business in my 20s. So I can't imagine actually doing anything else. Done this for a while. And as I said, every single one has been a learning experience. And I think what you learn over successive businesses is that if you have an idea, the most important thing is to find brilliant people around you, both advisors and your team, that also believe in your value proposition and your mission. They've got to come with you. You can't just sort of bulldoze people and say, this is what we do, it's a great idea. If people don't fervently believe in what you're doing, it's never going to materialize, because great businesses happen when brilliant people come together. And we are so blessed in Bonza with the most incredible team. All of them are utterly, utterly brilliant. And yes, we started with the kernel of an idea, but those ideas then ferment effectively and take life with the people that you're working with. And if you've got the right people, it's so much easier to do. So that's the big one. And then just don't give up. Keep going, be resilient, and be passionate about what you do. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it.
That's good advice. I like that. That's a good lesson to have. And we've already sort of covered what it is in the professional sort of music rehearsal and collaboration space looks like today. You have to book the room, you have to have the technology, you have to get the slots, you have to sort everything out. And those are sort of the key pain points I think you're dealing with. But is there anything else you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think for musicians, again, they've sort of been left behind, and not just musicians, artistic performers, because actors also struggle with ultra low latency connectivity. And everybody else will say, yeah, hey, we'll jump onto Teams or Zoom and we'll have a meeting. And you can't do that. If you want to say to your bandmate, oh, I'm not quite happy about the arrangement and the second part of that song, can we just jump on? No. Then it's like, okay, you're free next Tuesday. Should we book a room? Shall I come to yours? No, actually, my wife has got the kids, or my partner's got the kids, or hasn't got the kids, and I can't do it, and my car's broken down, and I can't get there, and it's too difficult. Trying to do all of that is like pulling teeth for lots of people. So being able to just say, sure, we can jump on straight to Bonza and let's have a play. You could sort something out in like 30 minutes that would otherwise take you probably 2.5 hours by the time you've packed the car with your gear, or gone on the tube or the train or the underground or the metro.
And you've got there. And this is a buzzword everywhere now. You've been vocal about AI's role in music and creativity.
Yes.
And you've even, thought about the topic of defying the algorithm. But how do you see AI as both an opportunity and a big challenge for the music industry?
Listen, don't get me wrong. I think AI is an amazing tool. And I am an early adopter of lots of tech. I love tech. And as I said, I blame my dad for that, really. But I see AI, I think the way we best use it is as an assistive technology, not as a replacement. I think Joanna, and I can never remember her surname, a brilliant Polish woman who came up with a fantastic quote that basically said, I don't want AI to do my writing and my art so that I have more time to go and do the laundry and the dishes. It's the wrong way around. And I think that's very true. And so I think AI should be leveraged to help. But I think ultimately we're going to have people get bored of beige sounding audio that's just been AI generated. And we were talking earlier about those fantastic mistakes that have existed in songs like Sting's bum note at the start of Roxanne, where he sat on a piano. That would never happen in an AI world. I don't want to hear something that is so airbrushed. I want to hear that artistic collaboration because it's authentic. And so we champion human collaboration. And it's really important. I think artists must continue to be visible and protected and rewarded for the art and skill that they bring to making music or performing in a play. Or I think a world without humans there front and center of that creative process is not a world I don't think I want to live in. I really don't. Having said all of that, if you've got some backing tracks and you're a brilliant singer and you want to use AI to provide some backing for you to do a demo before you get into studio, or to say this is roughly what I want it to sound like, that's a great use of AI. Or if you're saying, okay, I want AI to teach me how to do something better, then learn from it, absorb that learning, and then go away and do it yourself.
So it's more of a tool, less of an actual creator itself.
I think we should do that. And let's be honest, AI is generative AI, and in terms of audio, is only really going to be sustainable if there is a financial model behind it. If people reject that financial model and stick with artists, at some point it won't be viable.
That's true. That's a good point. And so we're looking at, it's not just about streaming audio, it's about the feel, it's creating sort of an immersive experience. And that's what Bonza is trying to do there. But how does that fit into the broader sort of music ecosystem we see now? Because we have AI doing this, we have all the recording studio stuff, but how does Bonza fit in there?
Okay, so I think, again, a lot of technology has been used for the latter parts of the creative process. Whether or not you've got digital audio workstation, a DAW that's accessible, which means you might not have to go into a studio anymore. You can do it at home. I think everything has been on that sort of, if you like, the later stage. But the initial creative process has been somewhat limited in terms of new tools that have come along. And we see ourselves at that part, if you like, of the creative journey. That could be trying out a new song. It could be that before you go into studio and you're playing around with ideas with the producer, that you actually want to say, can we just try this? Or can we try that in a different key without having to send a file to say, okay, have you got the file? Yeah, I've got the file. Yeah, what do you think? Okay, work on it and then send it back. At the moment for musicians, it's all very clunky because it's not synchronous and it's not in real time.
Bonza's goal is it's just sort of an out of the box. It can help B2B, it can help B2C, it can help anyone. And it's really that immersive sort of effect of making it sound like the users are in the same room. And we can get into the tech later, but I want to unpack that feeling aspect. So what is the difference between technical quality and the actual emotional quality in the sound?
Well, we want our tech to be invisible. If anyone is thinking about our technology when they're using Bonza, we've sort of missed it, actually. The best tech should be invisible. It should be like magic, really. And therefore, nobody walks into a room and flicks a switch on the light and think, oh, I wonder how the electricity gets there. How does the light bulb work? You don't want to think about it. You just want it to work. And we've done a lot of work in terms of the user interface, make it really super easy to use, quite intuitive. And in fact, we had to tear up early iterations because we thought it was very intuitive and really obvious. And then we put it out to test and we'd sort of missed the mark. So we went back and did it again. But I think those use cases have been really, really useful. And I think, I don't know, I think I want people to get the feeling of being with other people. And that's why we've worked so hard on the immersive audio. And that should be, of course I'm playing naturally. Of course I'm here playing in real time. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? Why did that not used to be possible? And that's what we've worked so hard on doing. And I think people who've used it, it sounds a bit cheesy, but there isn't anyone that's ever put a pair of headphones on to try Bonza for the first time that doesn't grin.
No, I did have a test on it before we did the podcast. It was like being on a stage, but I am just in the office in the podcast room. And it just worked.
It does. Thank you. And it's that sense of joy. And, I think fun can be really overused as a word, but Bonza's fun to use. And thank goodness it is, because that's the joy of playing. That again, it's that joy of human artistic collaboration. It's a fun thing to do. It's not work. It should be part of our playtime, and Bonza has to add to that. And, the fact that you can be on a stage at the Hope and Ruin, who's one of the brilliant venues that enabled us to go and measure their space acoustically, or Voodoo Daddies, which is a great little venue in Norwich, or some very well-known studios for some very big artists who've kindly let us measure their spaces. And that's a lot of fun, It
is fun. So why is that feel so critical? What breaks down when that ability to collaborate is missing?
I think it removes that emotive connection and emotional connection with your collaborators. And I think it removes that sense of being present with people. And if you don't have that, I think creating artistically becomes a more sterile process. And it's not quite so warm and it's not quite so human.
That's good. And we've already started talking about it. We talked about studios and rehearsals.
Yep.
And it is for professional musicians, but it's also for anyone with a passion for music. It
Definitely.
is rehearsals, lessons, ensemble performance. Yep. Why have you tried to make it so sort of accessible to anyone? Because it's not just professional musicians who need this. No. It could be anyone. But why have you wanted to make it so easy for anyone just to get started with it?
I think it goes back to the genesis of the idea behind everything, and looking at where we came from. We wanted to improve things for music education and up-and-coming musicians. And then along the way, we've created a tool that does work for professionals and studios and a whole pile of other people. And there is no point creating tech that then is so expensive that it's out of the reach of the very group of people you were trying to help in the first place. So we wanted something that could be ubiquitous and used by everyone. And there will be different flavors and different levels, and there will be slightly more bells and whistles, if you like, on the professional version. But the fundamental technology will be available to absolutely everyone. Whether you're, a music student or a leading professional about to go on stage at a globally known venue.
And then how do you then balance the needs of those professional musicians with someone who's maybe just getting started and maybe they're just doing their lessons on it, or maybe they're got a small band and they're just trying to get their band together to actually rehearse together. How do you balance those needs of having something that a professional can say, yep, I can reliably use this, and someone who's just getting started and might be a bit overwhelmed otherwise?
I think, again, it goes down to the use cases and where it potentially sits in the ecosystem. So a professional musician is likely to couple Bonza with a digital audio workstation. So we've been speaking to another software company, actually, and we're going to be using their plugin, their bridge, so that Bonza can be integrated with a DAW. So you can then record onto your DAW, and that's part of, if you like, that onward journey in terms of the technical. If you're up and coming music professional where you're working in bars, you might not need that. You've just got the core Bonza system. And I think the other thing that we consciously did is only the session lead has to pay for a Bonza subscription. So if you're a music student and your teacher invites you to a Bonza session, not only do you know that it's only you that's been invited by your teacher, and therefore there's some security there, you don't have to worry about anything. You just accept the invitation and boom, off you go. And it just works, and they will worry about the configuration and stuff.
Oh, that's good. It makes it very easy. You have one person who, like the teacher, leading it, and then it's not, the student has to pay as well. They can just join. No. That makes it really easy to use.
Really, really easy.
But then with all that in mind, what has actually been harder about building ones? What's been more difficult than you expected? And maybe what's been easier as well?
Well, let's be honest. As you heard earlier, nothing about this tech is easy. It's been really... so I think the idea was probably quite easy. I think the execution has been much harder, perhaps in areas than we expected. I think mashing these two technologies together has been difficult, and especially so that it would run on an ordinary type computer, so Mac and Windows, without overloading the CPU. So not making it too expensive in terms of processing load was really key. And then when you add in things like convolutions and room impulse responses, and not having, if you've got a long reverb, how do you make sure that's not too long in terms of sending in ultra low latency over let's not get down and dirty into the weeds of the tech. But I think a lot of those challenges were a lot harder. And I think one of the other things is bringing your investors along with you. We've been really blessed by some brilliant investors who have fabulous faith in what we're doing. They can see the vision, they understand the mission, they get the passion. But it's always hard raising money. And in fact, we're out again looking for some more money. So if there's anyone out there who would like to invest, please let us know. We have been brilliantly supported so far to date. But I think it's always hard, isn't it? You have to stop what you're doing to a degree, or keep that keep the fuel coming in, from investors, and keep delivering for them as well, whilst also dealing with some problems that you hadn't expected on the tech side. So it's never a perfect linear journey. And anyone that tells you, that's great, I had my business plan, I executed my business plan, and boom, here I am, they're lying.
They're glossing
over all of the bits and the bumps.
And
but, it's what makes life kind of fun sometimes. And the challenge is where, going back to what I was saying earlier about mistakes, sometimes those happy mistakes will lead you into a different direction, and you go, that's a much better idea, much better way of doing it.
And a big part of that, as we've mentioned and touched on many times, is that shared room feeling. So I'd like to go in a bit of the magic behind that. So starting with the basics, and we talked about this, you had that 5G conference where it was mentioned there. One thing many online collaborative tools struggle with is low latency. How does Bonza Music tackle this, and why is it so important?
Okay, so and I would also say our tech is ultra low latency. Can I just get that one in? So for real-time music collaboration, it really does need to be below 30 milliseconds on a one-way leg. We use peer-to-peer connectivity, and the ultra low latency that we use, the principles for ultra low latency audio have been around for some time. We worked with and still work with a brilliant German professor from a university in Germany. obviously, because it's German. Sorry.
He could work in France.
Yeah,
Probably.
he could. Absolutely. It is a fair point, actually. And he had been working with this tech for about 20 years. And so we bought his IP, and that IP formed the basis of the ultra-low latency because it's complex stuff. It's how you package audio to send at an incredibly fast rate over a network. And we always explain to people, because, we're asked all the time, well, how far can I do between London and LA? No. And they go, well, what do you mean no? It's like, we haven't broken the laws of physics, and we will tell everyone that repeatedly. So if you can't do a ping test between London and a foreign capital somewhere, you're not going to be able to collaborate live. That's just a ping. That's just a little ping. And if that doesn't get there in under 30 milliseconds, you haven't got a hope in hell. So broadband lines tend to work at 2/3 the speed of light, unless you're on hollow core fiber, which is a new type of line. I think Microsoft bought the company that invented hollow core, and that works at 0.9% or 90% the speed of light. And even then, the speed of light is too slow for audio collaboration between London and, let's say, Shanghai. So the ultra-low latency will work for... We do round trip tests for up to about 3,000 kilometers.
Okay.
That's okay. And that's for all of the peers. So you would,
You could do London, Stockholm, you could do London,
absolutely.
Berlin, Warsaw.
Absolutely. Leipzig, no problem. So, and most people tend to collaborate with people that are local to them because they'll be in a band.
Yeah.
So
That makes a lot of sense.
You're not generally going to be working with someone on a regular basis that lives on the other side of the world or even in another country.
Yeah.
So the low latency piece has taken us a while to get right. I think our low latency video is also really interesting. It's in sync with the audio, and that makes it also very different. And we process video very differently. But all of the technologies we use are proprietary to us. We haven't borrowed technology apart from the IP that we bought in from Alex Caro. And Alex is still involved with the business and leads up our R&D. So he's looking at the next thing, which is really exciting.
Incredible. And so as we started it, we'll keep going into the technical thing. Creating that, as we've just mentioned, shared room experience, no easy task, just looking at the latency. And Bonza has to take into account acoustic measurement pipelines, ML, exploration models, digital twin acoustics. So many factors have to be taken in. So without getting too caught in those weeds and going into the weird part of it all, how does Bonza help deliver those emotionally charged situations that lead to that sort of emotional, real music creation?
So again, this goes back to wanting people to be able to change the venue first and foremost, because every venue has a set of acoustic properties. There isn't one space that you walk into in your life that doesn't have an acoustic property, even if you're outside. So you will have a sense of being in that space, partly driven by what you're hearing, and people underestimate the importance of that acoustic reality, effectively, or in our case, it's not reality, but simulated reality. And we were upstairs in one of your rooms earlier, which is like an anechoic chamber, which is very dead. That if you play music in there, totally different experience to being on stage in a venue like the Royal Albert Hall or Ronnie Scott's or Madison Square Gardens or anywhere you'd like to think, or your mum's front room, and they will all create a different sense of presence and being there. And so that was job number one, is how could we capture the room impulse responses of those places? We do actually have two different ways of doing it, but at the moment the existing Bonza uses binaural room impulse responses. And we physically go and measure spaces. So these are not entirely synthesized, or they're not synthetic. Although we do have a machine learning tool that helps with that, which we'll get on. Sorry, I could talk a lot about this. So we'll go and capture the room impulse responses. We run audio sweeps to measure how the room reacts to those sweeps. And then we take the room impulse response into our software, and it becomes a setting within Bonza itself. And then the second part of it was enabling people to be moved around in that space, as it's all very well changing your space, but if you're working with 4 remote collaborators or more, you want to be able to position them in a way that feels authentic to you. And what might feel authentic to you may not feel authentic to one of your other bandmates. So it was critical that everybody had their own set of controls, and it could be unique and personal to each person. So it's a bit like being able to engineer your own studio mix when you're on stage with the sound engineers. I want more drums, I want more bass, or the vocalist saying I want more guitar. So you can change the mix, you can change the audio levels, you can change where they appear to be, you can move them further away from you or bring them closer to you. And that, if you like, those abilities are really key for giving that sense of being present. And once it's set, you just forget about it. And that's what people do, is after a while they just forget that they're not on a stage with other people or not physically in the same space.
So the drummer can say, I want to hear more of the bassist, the singer can hear more of the lead guitar.
You got it.
You got it. You can just mix and match and help. I guess that also helps the band hone their skill more because they're able to really focus on what they need to focus on. And
definitely. And if you don't like what someone's playing, you can turn them off and they'll never know.
So what challenges has Bonza actually faced maintaining that experience, and how have you overcome them?
What challenges? I mean, again, thanks to our brilliant engineering team, they have worked tirelessly to get through this. I think one of the big things that we walked into was pops and clicks on the audio, either from missing packets being sent because we're sending audio at such a ridiculous speed that things can get dropped, or if you've got long reverberations and room impulse responses, that can affect the length of the tail that you're sending. So it gets really complex, and some of those things were quite knotty problems to work through. I think the other thing is, obviously, the first system out of the door is Mac. Mac has been a lot easier to work with than Windows. Microsoft, help us out here. Windows, come on. There are some issues to do with audio interfaces not being easy to set, which we don't have that problem on the Mac interface. So Windows is coming. It's almost there. But it will manifest with more clicks and pops on the audio than you would like. And that's what we're just working on, ironing those last, if you like, creases out right now.
Good. So already more on the way already.
Oh, there is a long pipeline.
There's a lot on the way.
And I am so excited about some of the things that we've got in the pipeline coming down the track. Yeah.
Ooh. And then it's been emphasized that Bonza has this no hardware dependency, and we've sort of touched on it earlier in the way it works. But why is that such an important design principle? I
think it goes to the heart of, again, the genesis of the idea. If you're going to have something that's ubiquitous, the fewer barriers you can put in the way, the better. So we did look at actually creating a hardware box, because we could have said, oh, you have to buy Bonza in this little box, and the next person that wants to use his Bonza also needs this little box. And then suddenly, before you know about it, you're saying, well, you have to buy the box, and then there's a subscription, and then there's this and that. So you go back to saying, for up and coming musicians, suddenly you've just completely floored your argument before you've even started. We wanted something where the session lead is the only person that pays. So the person that's organising the session, they pay. People that are invited to the session, don't have to. And I think, again, what was critical was, therefore, it needed to work with a laptop, with a Mac, whether your Windows machine, not to force people to go and acquire a new particular set of hardware tools. Having said that, you do need an audio interface, but that most musicians will have something of that nature, whether it's a Focusrite or a Universal or a Presonus or any one of them. We are absolutely agnostic, but you do need one, and a wired set of headphones and a fast broadband connection.
I think most musicians probably have.
I think they do, actually. I mean, I'd like to think so. And I would hope it's not too onerous for music students either. I think certainly music students at tertiary level, who are studying music, they will definitely have all of those things.
They have access to everything they need. And then we mentioned it in the intro, but looking at the team behind Bonza, how did you build that team? Obviously, we've got your German professor who had the IP, but what kind of backgrounds do your technical people come from then?
Well, obviously, you're quite right with Alex, and his IP was only on the low latency. And so the spatial audio, we worked with the brilliant team at the Audio Lab of York University. And they engineered the spatial audio for us and with us. And we did a prototype research project, and that led on to obviously finding some people who, some PhD students who'd recently left, who were associated to the University of York, and you can see how it goes. I think we've just been very lucky. I've reached out to my network. We haven't advertised for many roles. We've advertised, I think, for 2. I don't plan on pushing out another LinkedIn advert. Last advert we pushed out, we got 480 responses to one advert. So we don't have AI going through it, and my time is somewhat limited, so we won't be doing that anymore. But we are just really lucky, and I think people are attracted to this as a proposition. We found people who are passionate about music. Almost everyone in the business plays an instrument, even if it's just the triangle, which I think is probably me. No, I'm learning bass badly, but I love it. But everyone else is, pretty accomplished musician, and therefore they get the issue, they get the challenges. And, we have our spatial audio C++ specialists going all the way through to our front-end dev team, and some brilliant designers. Yeah, I love the team. They're wonderful. Big shout out.
It says a lot about the team that off one ad you could get 400 applicants. It already shows you've got a team that are building results that are making an impact. People go, actually, that could be a fun place to work.
Yeah. And I'd like to think it's really important it is a nice place to work. When we started this business, we wanted to make sure that there were some core principles that we adhered to in terms of how we are as a company. This is about, yes, of course, we've got a mission. Yes, of course, we want to make money. But also, we need to look after people along the way. Without a brilliant team, we are nowhere. This is all about people pulling together, moving in one consistent direction and being passionate about it. And if we lose that, we're dead.
I was going to say, and with that, you've got this great team, but you are still a startup. So does being a startup help you move faster and be more flexible in a way that larger legacy organizations can't be? Or can being a startup actually be a bit more difficult and generate more issues?
I think you've highlighted both of the issues for startups perfectly. On the one hand, we can go fast, subject to money and having those opportunities that bigger companies might easily have. They have access to perhaps bigger clients, more opportunities, more marketing budgets, ability to push things to the next level. Whereas with the startup, you're always looking at, okay, we have to be as lean as we possibly can be. Everything is cut to the wire in terms of both time and cost. And we have built this business by, yes, of course, we have a core of full-time guys that work with us all the time, but we also have a lot of part-timers and fractionals and freelancers, and that's how we've managed to do what we've done on 1.5 million quid so far, which in the big scheme of things, given what we've built, is not that much.
Bit of a shoestring, but still good.
Shoestring. So yeah, I think yes, we're agile. Yes, we can move, and I think the decision-making process and the decisions to move are where we absolutely can be lean. But yeah, running startups is not for the faint-hearted. That's for sure.
But you have had a bit of help as a startup in the fact that you've already generated some real interest from veterans and global musicians, like the ones who've let you use their recording spaces to help build the platform. But how was working with those veterans, those global musicians, helped you build Bonza's platform and inform your decisions?
I think it's been critical. There is no point building something and having the arrogance to assume that you know all the answers. I won't be using this tech every day. So if we don't listen to the people whose opinion we value and trust, we're sort of nowhere. So as I think we explained, we sort of did that with the user interface to a degree. We realized that we needed to reskin it completely and do it again. But Jamie Cullum has been absolutely wonderful. He has been a huge supporter of us and the mission from really the start. He tested our prototype. He was the first person ever to try it. He did the launch at CoStar Live Lab last year, the first time we unveiled the software. he's just absolutely wonderful. And I think his feedback has enabled us to tweak and push and refine and improve. And of course, there are many others that we work with. And, we really value their input and their support.
And you're building in this music space. You've got the veterans, your market. But it can be difficult building in this music tech space because you're dealing with creative professionals and people who have a creative passion. And that means when they're dealing with their passion, the standards are going to be really high. They have high expectations. Do you have any advice for founders who are building tools for the creative industry that should bear in mind that you've seen building Bonza?
Yeah, I think I would go back to what I was just sort of saying. I think the big one is listen. Listen to what people tell you and listen to their feedback. And sometimes you have to read between the lines because, especially in Britain, we're very polite.
Yes,
and people won't tell you exactly what they think. They'll sort of talk around it. So I think you have to probe and research and ask and test. And that is that's the most important thing that you can do, because if you're not building a tool that's going to be used by people working in the industry, you might as well go home.
Might as well just go home.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. And then if you could go back in time to any point in your career, be it in Bonza, be it anywhere else, what advice would you have given yourself that maybe would help you out today?
Oh my goodness me.
It's a tricky one.
Go and get another job. Don't run startups. No, seriously. Advice for my younger self, I think the big one is get the right people around you, find the right advisors. And if you have an idea and you believe in it, stick with it. There'll be so many people that will tell you it's a rubbish idea, and it often isn't. Not everybody has, a perfect view of the world. And you have to stick with your gut feeling. I think I do a lot on gut. Yes, we'll take the research and I'll look at the analytical data behind it. But I think if it feels right, you just have to go for it heart and soul and not get scared. And I think, if the idea ultimately isn't scaring you, perhaps it's not quite big enough. I think, this one is a big idea, and we'd love it to be globally successful and utterly ubiquitous in the music industry. I think that idea would have absolutely terrified me when I was in my mid-20s. So advice to my younger self: just be brave. Just be brave and go and do it, and keep the belief.
Keep the belief. And some people are afraid of going big because they're worried they might make a mistake, but mistakes are something you can learn from. So has there ever been a mistake that you made really early on at any point in your career that ended up being a really valuable lesson?
Oh, I've made so many mistakes. Who hasn't, actually? And I think they always say mistakes are more valuable, and they are. Whether that's how you structure a business, and the different types of shareholding that you may have. And I'm still learning every day. I think the day that I stop learning, or the day that I assume I know it all, is going to be, I really would need to stop at that point. I think there is so much out there to learn, and so many brilliant people that we can learn from. And I think the biggest mistake is not listening to other people when they've got a decent opinion. Don't necessarily assume they're perfect, but keep your ears open, keep an open mind. Don't close things. Don't close your ideas down, and don't be arrogant. Whatever you do,
don't be arrogant.
Don't be arrogant. Just I think it's a gift to be able to do this, and it's an honor to be able to do this. And I always try and remember that. And what we are trying to build something for other people. This is, I suppose, in some ways, therefore, a somewhat selfless endeavor. Yes, we want to make money for everyone, and that's really important.
But it's also about creating something
that is useful and beautiful and fun to use.
That's really nice advice. Words to live by.
Thank you.
But I will say we are coming to the end of our time. But before we go, I did want to ask for our listeners, so we can learn more about you, Bonza's work, follow your journey, anything that's happening. Is there anything you'd like to leave them with, or anything where they can follow you or Bonza's work?
Yeah, absolutely. Check out the website on bonzamusic.com. We are on Instagram and LinkedIn. and YouTube, but there's not a lot of content yet because we are getting there. Please follow us. You'll find me on LinkedIn. That's Fiona Ryder.
I can include a link in the description.
You can, there we go, that's fine. And yeah, download the software, have a play. There's 7-day free trial of the software. Come and see what it's all about. And if you've got any questions, reach out. It's a really friendly company.
It's a friendly company.
Yeah.
So there we go. If you want to know more about Fiona's work, you can check her out on LinkedIn. You can also follow Bonza on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and just go on the website. They have a free trial. You can play around, see what it's about, and just find a way of helping your bands and your musical projects work.
Yeah, exactly.
So on that, I would like to close off this episode.
Thank
and
you.
I'd like to thank you for being with us today, sharing your insights about your journey, Bonza, everything you do, and all the experience you have in building not only this company, but your whole time in the sort of music tech industry there.
Thank you, Josh. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So as mentioned, we'll include some resources in the description for you to follow Bonza and also Fiona's work. And if you want to know more about making top-notch quality products, you can check out TestDevLab's knowledge base, where we have our blog, white papers, and of course, more episodes of Tech Effect. So once again, thank you for being with us, my third one. And thank you to you, the audience, for joining us today. And I'll see you in the next one.